Alright, so you guys know that I'm enjoying Modern Warfare. I like playing it solo, I like playing it with friends. My favorite game modes are Domination, Kill Confirmed, Hardpoint, and Ground War. Compared to the last two Call of Duty games, I don't have the problems that I had with those games. Black Ops 4, me feeling like it's inherently broken and imbalanced, and COD World War II feeling like a lukewarm glass of milk. Boring is what I'm saying. And in my opinion, Modern Warfare nails being new and familiar at the same time. There's nothing inherently broken about the core game. There's just some problems that need to be ironed out, which I have laid out in videos before. Overall, I like the product, and it would take a lot for me to turn against it at this point. Now, currently, real talk, not just, hyperbolic ranting, my real problem with Modern Warfare is the lack of communication from Infinity Ward. I don't think they need to add 8 new maps. I don't think they need to remake everything. I don't think they need to add in a ton of perks that make you feel like you're playing a COD game that came out 10 years ago. I really just think Infinity Ward needs to be clear with their fan base as to what's going on behind the scenes, what they're working on, what they're thinking about. I need to know. But in this video, I thought it'd be fun to sit here and just ramble about everything that pisses me off in Modern Warfare in no particular order. Just rant about the annoying parts of Modern Warfare, just for fun, just for the cathartic experience, because right now it's fun to pick on the game. Some people are taking it very seriously, but the first month of a Call of Duty game, nay, the first 2 or 3 months of a Call of Duty game, it's kind of rough. And so it's kind of fun to pick on it right now. Like, I had my complaints about Black Ops 4, but I didn't really start giving Black Ops 4 the business until it kept getting worse months down the line. In my opinion, Modern Warfare isn't getting worse, it's just taking its sweet time getting better. So keep in mind that this video is mostly in good fun, but these things do irritate me. Now, a lot of people are complaining about camping, and while I've made videos talking about how the game could do more to incentivize aggressive playstyles, my problem are the people that find it funny to sit in a room with trophy systems or deployable cover, attack inserts, claymores everywhere, in a corner, with a mounted LMG and just wait for you, or sit in a corner and with a shotgun or something like that. They just hold a little room on the map and they just stay there all game. Now, are they impossible to counter? Hell no. Do people make mountains out of molehills when complaining about them? Yes, they often do, but I do see players doing it obsessively as if it's a meme. They're not actually trying to win the game. They're not even using it as a legitimate strategy of like, oh, I'm locking down a flag or a line of sight. They're just doing it because that's the meme. What's annoying about these people is if you listen to them, they're like, oh, this is the only way you can play the game. It's like, no, that's the only way you can play the game. Don't get it mixed up. Because I have no reason to think otherwise, if I see you obsessively camping in the stupidest spots all game, I'm just going to assume that's all you can do, and that you're not doing it ironically or to make a point. You might say you are, but really you just can't actually go out and control the map and move around and win gunfights, so that's the way you play. Forcing me to bring an arsenal of explosives to blow your ass up because I'm more than willing to adapt to you, but my god, meme culture really ruined gaming over the last couple of years because as soon as something is well known, it's completely overdone. It is funny though how many people haven't gotten the Claymore nerf EOD buff memo and how many people haven't gotten the 725 nerf memo. That's getting funny, but moving on. The spawns in this game are absolutely, fundamentally mediocre. Honestly, I've seen worse spawns in Call of Duty games, or even spawns that are on par, and a lot of the bad spawns I've seen from people sharing footage are on game modes like Headquarters or Hardpoint, which in my experience has always had kind of weird spawns. The real problems in this game are maps like Piccadilly or Petrograd, where the spawn areas are locked in little quarters that don't have flank routes or underground tunnels or height advantages, and so you're just spawning basically in this death hallway. And as soon as they predict that spawn, even if the game makes it harder to trap you, it's a spawn location that basically puts you in a meat grinder. It makes it easier to control the map, but it also makes it easier for me to die right off my spawn. Spawns always take a while to perfect, but please Infinity Ward, make it a priority. The next thing that's frustrating about this game's multiplayer are the shotguns, because Infinity Ward will never be able to fix the shotguns due to the maps. Now, camping is something you can change by changing perks, attachments, sprint speed, sprint out times. You can really affect the way people camp all the time. But shotguns are close-range weapons that are designed to work in close range. So many of Modern Warfare's maps have tight, quartered rooms. They just have really tight quartered rooms. On Hackney Yard, you have the A and C domination buildings and the middle office building. You have the restaurant and biohazard building, or whatever it's called, hazmat building, on Petrograd, as well as the bar area and the train station and the little apartment complex you can run through. On Anye Palace, you have the taxi cab center and the building that overlooks the pool. You have the rug shop and the fuelings depot on Azure Cave. Okay, you guys get it. And shotguns in those buildings, in those tight little rooms that you have to either pass through or hold down, shotguns are incredibly frustrating to go up against as somebody that likes to play with ARs and SMGs and maybe like an LMG or something. It's very frustrating to get to those rooms and just know that if somebody has a shotgun, I pretty much have an unwinnable gunfight. You could call this a problem, and if you wanted to, it's a problem that's existed in any FPS game that has a tight quartered building and shotguns. But Modern Warfare especially seems to be littered with these small buildings, not all of them providing a tactical advantage or even a productive place to camp, but when you're in those areas, every time you're in them, whether it's rug shop, fueling depot, clothing store, the wine store, the building above the pool, the taxi center, wherever it might be on any of these maps. Like a big one is Ramaza with the soap shop and the first floor cafe and the gun store and the electronic shop. Shotguns rule these rooms, they rule these buildings, and they will always do that if the shotguns work. Unless they make the shotguns not work, which I don't think they're going to do. Shotguns are a great newbie weapon. They're always fun to use. I even enjoy using them. Everybody likes a good shotgun. But because of these maps, they're always going to be frustrating all year round as long as the shotguns work. Because these rooms are a pain in the ass to get through anyway if somebody's holding them down. If they have a shotgun, you walk in and you are immediately sent to a respawn screen. At least with Claymores, I can put on Spotter and EOD. With a shotgunner, I just need to avoid the engagement entirely unless I know I can get the upper hand or flank behind them, but it becomes a whole thing. And a thing that I'm worried about exhausting me throughout the life cycle of the game. The next thing is the compass. Briefly, let me just say, the compass in Ground War or a Battle Royale mode will be great, but it doesn't make any sense for the 10v10 and 6v6 game modes, and I want it gone, and I want us to have a traditional minimap back. The compass was a fun idea, and I think it should definitely be in large game modes and Battle Royale stuff for sure, but I do not see a point in it being there in 6v6 game modes. I want the minimap to tell me if there's some douchebag in the building I'm about to enter with a shotgun and what floor he's on. In Black Ops 2, the Remington with long barrel and laser sight was very, very frustrating, but at least when somebody fired the damn thing, I could see it on the minimap. I want people to have to spec their weapons with suppressors, and I want suppressors to see a little bit of a movement speed decrease on the weapons that they're on. I don't care if that's realistic, but that's what I'd like to see. I want you to nerf your gun if you don't want me to see you, but if you want to use it at full power, I want to know what room you're in, and I want to know what floor you're on, and I want to come and kill you. That's what 6v6 and 10v10 should be about. Ground War, I'm more okay with the system in Ground War or in a Battle Royale mode. I'm okay with the compass, half minimap working hybrid weirdness that they have going on there. Oh, okay, that's fine, that's fair. But it doesn't make sense for 6v6 and 10v10. The next problem I have is definitely bullet penetration. A really good example of bad bullet penetration is trying to shoot somebody through the plywood on the scaffolding in Piccadilly and getting 2 to 3 extra hit markers depending on what gun you're using because they're behind thin plywood. Or the thin sheet metal on Azure Cave that kind of provides visual cover, should only be providing visual cover on the little stone wall on Azure Cave. I remember the days where if somebody got behind one of those things, you could just shoot them. The stuff that you can and can't shoot through in Modern Warfare doesn't make any sense. The amount of time somebody peeking around a corner gives me an extra hit marker, because apparently my bullet was able to go through the concrete apparently and get a hit marker. I've seen this in hardcore mode. I get a hit marker with a gun that's supposed to one-shot at the range that I'm using it because my bullet goes through the corner of the concrete and loses like all of its damage. If it's able to be shot through, let my bullet do damage once it goes through it, and if it's not able to be shot through, that's fine. But you could really reduce some of the camping and head glitching by just buffing bullet penetration. My god. Even with FMJ, your bullet penetration damage is just pathetic. It doesn't have to be ridiculous, but come on, just bring it in line with what looks like should be shot through, like plywood or thin sheet metal. Another pet peeve I have about Modern Warfare is the red name above your head. There's no perk in the game that allows you to hide that red name above your head, but it only seems to show up sometimes. I thought maybe they didn't want you to get rid of it as actually an anti-camping measure to make you more visible when you're laying in a bush or against a dark background, but sometimes it just doesn't seem to show up until I've already died by the person. If you're going to have them always pop up, have them always pop up. Don't have it be inconsistent. Really make that a consistent part of the game. And also, I wouldn't mind the little Infinite Warfare health bar where I can see how much damage my opponent has. If any of you think that's not realistic, I think it's actually more realistic to be able to look at a person and be able to tell how injured they are in real life than it is to look at them and deduce their name. But please, make it more consistent. Sometimes I see it around a corner, or I see it behind cover for some reason, and other times somebody will just be in a dark corner and their name will not show up, or they'll be head glitching a wall and their name will not show up. How about this? If their character model is on my screen, put the red name above their head. Another pet peeve I have is how many attachments in this game just don't feel usable or useful or viable or practical or any of those ols. It just doesn't feel good to like have 2 stocks on the Scar where their only bonus is increasing aiming stability. Instead of having 2 stocks that both increase aiming stability but maybe also increase another stat like plus aim down sight speed or plus recoil control but negative movement speed or negative aim down sight time, you know what I mean? Like they could do that, but they don't, and it just feels like some of the attachments in the game are not worth running, especially on certain guns. I'm sorry, in what world do I want aiming stability on my NP5? I mean, maybe in hardcore for one-tapping people, if that's what you're going for? Maybe if I want to land a headshot in the realism mode, we'll get to that in a second, but I must be missing something, because there's so much stuff in this game that I don't see the point of. It's like the operator foregrip allows you to get better recoil control, but then there's the Merc foregrip that gives you better recoil control and better hipfire accuracy, and I really haven't noticed any reason to run the operator over the Merc. Some of the downsides on these attachments are just completely not noticeable unless you stack it with a ton of other terrible attachments that have the same downside, but I don't know, maybe it's just for aesthetic differences, maybe it's just for very minimalist tweaking to exactly what you want the gun to do, I don't know. But I would love it a lot more if every attachment was more defined. But the next thing is Realism Mode. Why did you add Realism Mode, Infinity Ward, if you weren't going to do anything with it? And I kind of feel the same way about Night Mode. I feel like you haven't been doing it properly. You have a matchmaking filter for core versus hardcore. Why not have core, hardcore, and realism? I think realism is for hardcore players that want to actually have a semblance of a real meta and still be rewarded for their accuracy. You can't just one-tap somebody in the fucking stomach with a Scar, you have to land a headshot. And I love that idea, but you make it hard. Why can't my friends and I just choose the game mode we want to play with the realism modifier? I'm sorry, when you have PC, PlayStation, and Xbox players all playing together, I cannot believe that there's not enough players to let this happen. Also, when you're picking one of the game modes, why not just have a toggle for all 3 sections, a realism, hardcore, and core section? Why not have a toggle for all of them that allows you to activate night maps in rotation or deactivate them? Because I wouldn't mind playing them once in a while, but I feel like I have to strain and go into play realism when I don't always want to play realism night. Why can't I just play core mode night or hardcore night? Why isn't there night SND? Is there night SND? I wouldn't goddamn know. It's a step in the right direction, allowing people to play gun game at night, because I think that's a cool novelty. But you didn't do enough with the night mode. There's not enough night mode maps, and the realism playlist is kind of a joke. If you're going to have a game mode and these modifiers, have them in the game. Don't have it feel like some little temporary mode afterthought. Really, like, if it's gonna be in the game, let it be in the game. But of course, at the end of all this ranting, my biggest problem with Modern Warfare are the complaints. Oddly enough, after 15 minutes almost of me complaining, that's honestly my biggest problem. Is because although I stand by these complaints, I hate seeing how pessimistic, how slow to adapt, and how irritable the Call of Duty community has become. We deserve to be jaded, we deserve to be a little entitled, we've been thrown around by the Call of Duty franchise several times. But even the influencers who make their money off of Call of Duty are slower to give it the benefit of the doubt than compared to some of the fans. I think we've grown to be a little impatient, and I want to see that improved over the next year. Also, there's a general impatience that happens when it comes to Infinity Ward titles that I'm getting tired of seeing, because I don't think it's fundamentally based in the quality of the games, and instead some sort of stigma that's been kind of cultivated through common consensus and not really a lot of common fact. Certain members of the COD community were quick to decide that Infinite Warfare was a bad game before they even saw what the first-person heads-up display looked like. They hadn't even played the beta, they hadn't even seen a multiplayer map, nothing. And they had already decided it was bad because of the time period, apparently. And there were people that were like, oh, screw Infinite Warfare, I hate where COD is going, I'm gonna go play Black Ops 3, a game that spent the previous year fucking people out of every dime they could. And Infinite Warfare's mission to build goodwill with their player base went unnoticed and unreported by so many influencers and players. There's still so much stigma surrounding Call of Duty Ghosts that I don't feel like the game deserved. Modern Warfare's on a bumpy track, and Infinity Ward feels like they're still trying to get their bearings over there, and I'm willing to be patient because I do see the game getting better. Okay, if they weren't fixing anything, they weren't updating the game at all, they weren't fixing crashes, they weren't nerfing footstep audio, they weren't making tweaks to overpowered guns, even if they're doing it slowly, which I'm not really that cool with, they're doing it, and I'm watching it happen, and I can't get mad about old beans. It's easy and fun to pick on the game now and talk about what a terrible state this game that's only been out for a month is in, but I have not played a Call of Duty game that's had its shit together in its first month, ever. Just ever. I'm sorry, never. I usually don't think a Call of Duty's on the right track until after fucking January, so let's just give Infinity Ward a little bit of a break, but also respectfully request the things we want to see, because this is the changing period. Changes are going to happen, changes are going to come, and I guarantee you this game will be in a much better place within the next month or two. And if you weren't expecting that, I just kind of want to know where you've been the last every Call of Duty. Thank you guys for coming out, thank you guys for stopping by, and these problems are not specific to Call of Duty as a franchise either. If you paid attention to Battlefield 1's, Battlefield 5's, Battlefield Hardline, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3's launches, you will know it's the same goddamn thing. There was a lot of problems with Halo games too, weren't there? A lot of complaints people had about different things in those games. I'm just starting to think we have trouble being pleased just at all, or maybe making video games is more complicated than it looks from the outside. I don't know. See you when I see you guys. Let's stay hopeful.
And I got shot, right? So I prone behind the deployable cover, and I tried to bounce nade off the top of the cave ceiling, and it bounced back to me and killed me.